The stars burned cold in the void above Arctis 4, a remote ice world at the edge of the outer rim. Beneath the planet's frozen crust, in a small settlement carved into a glacier, a girl named Lyra Varn woke with a scream lodged in her throat. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her hands clutching the furs piled atop her narrow cot. The dream, no, the memory clung to her like frost. A man in black armor, his mechanical breathing a death knell, and her own voice, pleading, breaking as the life drained from her body. I am Padme, she whispered into the dark, her voice trembling. The words felt alien, yet undeniable. She was 16, a mechanic's apprentice in a backwater colony, but the weight of another life pressed against her mind, a life of queens and senators, of love and betrayal, of a galaxy spiraling into war. Lyra stumbled from her cot, her bare feet cold against the stone floor. The small room, lit only by the faint glow of a heating coil, felt suffocating. She pressed her palms to her temples, trying to silence the flood of images, the gleaming spires of Theed, the Senate's endless debates, Anakin's smile before it twisted into something darker. She saw it all with a clarity that terrified her. These weren't dreams. They were her. The door hissed open and her father, Torrin Varn, stood silhouetted against the dim light of the corridor, his weathered face creased with concern. Lyra? Another nightmare? She nodded, unable to speak. Torrin crossed the room and knelt beside her, his calloused hands gentle on her shoulders. You've been like this for weeks, ever since your name day. Talk to me, kid. Lyra wanted to tell him, wanted to spill the impossible truth, but how could she? She was Lyra Varn, born to a mechanic and a hydro farmer on this frozen rock, yet she was also Padmé Amidala, Queen of Naboo, Senator of the Galactic Republic, wife to Anakin Skywalker, mother to Luke and Leia. The memories weren't fading, they were growing sharper, more insistent, as if the Force itself demanded she acknowledge them. I'm fine, she lied, forcing a smile. Just bad dreams. Torrin's eyes narrowed, but he didn't press. Get some rest. You're on early shift at the docks tomorrow. He squeezed her shoulder and left, the door sealing shut behind him. Lyra sat in the dark, her mind racing. She didn't know why these memories had surfaced now or what they meant, but she couldn't ignore them. Padme's life had ended in tragedy. Her love for Anakin had birthed Darth Vader, and her death had left her children to face a galaxy in chaos. If she was truly Padme reborn, then the Force had given her a second chance. But for what? The next morning, Lyra trudged through the snow-dusted streets of Glint, the settlement's only town. Arctis 4 was a harsh world, its economy built on mining rare crysium ore used in starship reactors. The docks, a sprawling complex of landing pads and repair bays, buzzed with activity despite the biting cold. Lyra's job was simple, maintain the aging freighters that hauled ore off-world, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying Padme's memories of starships and battle plans, of negotiations with alien senators and covert missions with Jedi. Hey, Varn! Called a voice. Kale, a wary Twi'lek mechanic, waved her over to a battered freighter. This pile of bolts needs a new hyperdrive relay. You in? Lyra nodded, grateful for the distraction. She climbed into the ship's engine bay, her hands moving with a precision that felt both instinctive and foreign. Padme had never been a mechanic, but she'd overseen enough starship repairs during the Clone Wars to understand the systems. As Lyra worked, she overheard the pilots, a rough pair of humans, grumbling at the edge of the bay. Another delay, one muttered. The Syndicate's tightening their grip. They're demanding double the credits for safe passage through the rim. Criff that, the other spat. We should just pay the Resistance. At least they're fighting for something. Lyra's hands froze. The Resistance. Leia. Her daughter, Padme's daughter, had founded it to oppose the First Order, but the First Order was gone, defeated years ago at Exegol, according to the fragmented news that reached Arctis 4. So why was the Resistance still active, and who was this Syndicate? She finished the repair and climbed out, wiping grease from her hands. Kale noticed her expression. You look like you saw a ghost, kid. What's up? What do you know about the Syndicate? Lyra asked, keeping her voice casual. Kale's leg had twitched, a sign of unease. Bunch of criminals who've been muscling in on trade routes since the First Order fell. They were organized, ruthless. Word is, they've got someone big backing them, someone with real power. Power like what? Lyra pressed. Kale shrugged. Dunno, but they've got ships and weapons that make the old Empire look like a street gang. Stay clear of them, Lyra. You don't want their attention. She nodded, but her mind was already racing. Padme had faced threats like this before. Warlords, separatists, Sith. If the Syndicate was a new power in the galaxy, she needed to know more. She needed to act. That night, Lyra sat cross-legged on her cot, a datapad balanced on her knees. She'd scavenged it from the docks, its cracked screen flickering as she accessed Glint's public holonet terminal. The connection was slow, but she managed to pull up reports on the Syndicate. They were a shadowy coalition of smugglers, mercenaries, and ex-Imperial officers, filling the power vacuum left by the First Order's collapse. Their leader was unknown, but their influence was spreading, choking trade routes and extorting worlds like Artus IV. Lyra's fingers tightened on the datapad. This was the kind of threat Padme would have confronted head-on, rallying in allies, forging plans. But Lyra was no queen or senator. She was a nobody, stuck on a frozen world with no resources, no allies. Yet the memories burned in her, urging her to act. She couldn't sit idle while the galaxy slid back into chaos. A soft chime from the datapad interrupted her thoughts. A new message had arrived, anonymous and encrypted. Lyra frowned. She'd never received a message like this before. Hesitating, she opened it. "You are more than you seem, Lyra Varn. The Force has awakened you for a purpose. Meet me at the old Crysium mine, Sector 7, at midnight. Come alone." Her heart pounded. The Force? No one on Artus IV spoke of the Force. It was a myth, a relic of the Jedi and Sith, both long gone. Yet the message felt like a hook in her soul, pulling her towards something she couldn't ignore. Padme's instincts screamed caution, but also curiosity. Who could know about her awakening? And why now? The crysium mine in Sector 7 was abandoned, its tunnels sealed after a collapse years ago. Lyra bundled herself in a thermal cloak and slipped out of Glint, her breath fogging in the sub-zero air. The mine's entrance loomed ahead, a jagged maw in the ice. She carried a small vibroknife, her only weapon, and a glow rod that cast eerie shadows on the frozen walls. As she stepped inside, the air grew colder, the silence oppressive. Her boots crunched on frost-covered stone. "Hello," she called, her voice echoing. A figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, tall and lean, her face half hidden by a hood. Her eyes gleamed in the dim light, sharp and assessing. "You came," she said, her voice low and measured. "I wasn't sure you would." "Who are you?" Lyra demanded, her hand resting on the vibro knife. Padme's training kept her calm, but she was ready to move if needed. The woman lowered her hood, revealing dark skin, close-cropped hair, and a scar tracing her jaw. "My name is Soren Cade. I was a Jedi once. Now I'm something else." Lyra's breath caught. A Jedi? The Jedi Order had been extinct for decades, save for Luke Skywalker's brief attempt to rebuild it. "The Jedi are gone," she said cautiously. "Not entirely," Soren replied. "The Force endures, and it's chosen you. I felt it. A ripple, like a stone dropped into a still pond. You're no ordinary girl, Lyra. You carry a legacy." Lyra's mind raced. Padme had worked with Jedi, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Anakin, but she'd never been Force-sensitive. Yet Soren's words resonated, as if the Force itself was confirming her rebirth. "Why me?" she asked. "What do you want?" Soren stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "The galaxy is fracturing again. The Syndicate isn't just a criminal empire, it's a symptom of something darker, something manipulating the threads of power. I've been tracking them, but I can't do it alone. The Force led me to you, Lyra. Or should I say, Padme?" Lyra froze. "How do you know that name?" "The Force speaks in echoes," Soren said softly. "It told me. I felt your awakening like a beacon across the stars. You're her, aren't you? Padmé Amidala, reborn." Lyra's heart thundered. This woman knew the impossible truth she'd barely begun to accept herself. "That's not possible," she said, her voice shaking. "Padme died. I'm Lyra." "Are you?" Soren tilted her head, studying her. "The Force doesn't lie. It's rare but not unheard of. A soul reborn carrying memories of a past life. You're more than a mechanic's apprentice, Lyra. You're a queen, a leader, and the galaxy needs you again." Lyra's mind spun. Padme's memories surged. Meetings with Palpatine, battles on Geonosis, Anakin's anguished face. She stumbled back, clutching the vibro knife. "This is insane. I don't know what you're talking about." Soren raised a hand, her expression softening. I know it's overwhelming, but you're not alone. I can help you understand. Help you harness what's waking inside you. Harness what? Lyra snapped. I'm not a Jedi. I'm not... her. Not a Jedi, Soren agreed. But you're something. The Force has a purpose for you, just as it did for Padme. The Syndicate is only the beginning. There's a darkness rising, and you're meant to face it. Lyra's grip tightened on the knife. And if I refuse? Soren's eyes darkened. You won't. You can't. Padme never walked away from a fight, and neither will you. The words hit like a blaster bolt. Lyra wanted to deny them, to run back to her simple life, but the memories, Padme's memories, burned too brightly. She saw Naboo's liberation, the Clone Wars, the fall of the Republic. She saw Anakin, his eyes yellow with rage. She couldn't unsee it. What do you want me to do? She asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Soren smiled faintly. For now, come with me. There's someone you need to meet. Someone who can help you understand what you are. Who? Lyra asked, her stomach knotting. Soren's gaze turned distant, as if seeing something far beyond the icy cave. A friend, a teacher, someone who knew Padme, and Anakin. Lyra's breath hitched. Anakin. The name was a wound, raw and bleeding. She wanted to ask more, but Soren was already moving, gesturing for her to follow. We don't have much time. The Syndicate's spies are everywhere, even on Arctis 4. Lyra hesitated, her mind a storm of doubt and determination. Padme's memories urged her forward. She'd never back down from a challenge, no matter how impossible. But this? This was beyond anything she had faced. Yet the Force, or fate, or something had chosen her. She couldn't ignore that. She followed Soren into the tunnels, her glow rod casting flickering light on the walls. The weight of Padme's life pressed against her, but so did her resolve. Whatever she was, Lyra or Padme or something new, she would find out. The galaxy depended on it. The tunnels beneath the Crysium mine were a labyrinth of ice and shadow, their walls glittering faintly under Lyra Varn's glow rod. Her breath fogged in the frigid air as she followed Soren Cade, the former Jedi who claimed to know her secret. Lyra's mind churned with doubt and fear, but Padme's memories, sharp, vivid, and unrelenting, urged her forward. She was no longer just a mechanic's apprentice from Arctis 4. She was something more, something the galaxy needed, whether she was ready or not. Soren moved with the grace of a predator, her thermal cloak barely rustling as she navigated the twisting passages. Lyra struggled to keep up, her boots slipping on patches of frost. The weight of the vibro knife at her belt felt inadequate compared to the blaster rifles Padme had wielded during the Clone Wars. She pushed the thought aside. Padme's skills were hers now, but she wasn't sure how to access them. Where are we going? Lyra asked, her voice echoing off the icy walls. Soren didn't turn. Somewhere safe. The Syndicate has eyes in glint, and they're looking for you. Me? Lyra's stomach twisted. Why would they care about a nobody like me? You're not a nobody, Soren said sharply. The Force woke you for a reason. They sense it, even if they don't understand it yet. Lyra's mind flashed to Padme's encounters with Darth Sidious, the way his presence had felt like a shadow suffocating the light. Was the Syndicate connected to something like that? She wanted to ask. But Soren's pace quickened, and Lyra had to focus on not losing her in the dark. The tunnel opened into a cavern, its ceiling studded with jagged crysium crystals that caught the glow rod's light like stars. A small ship waited at the far end, a sleek, modified shuttle, its hull patched but sturdy. Soren gestured toward it. Get in. We're leaving Arctis. Lyra froze. Leaving? I can't just... I have a family, a job... You're not safe here, Soren cut in, and neither are they if the Syndicate finds you. The longer you stay, the more danger you bring to Glint. Lyra's chest tightened. She thought of her father, Torin, his weathered hands and quiet strength. She thought of her mother, Alara, tending the Hydra farms with a smile that hid her exhaustion. Padme had left Naboo to fight for the Republic, but Lyra wasn't Padme. Not fully. Not yet. I need to say goodbye, she said, her voice firm. Soren's eyes softened, but only for a moment. There's no time. Write them a message. I'll make sure it gets to them. Lyra wanted to argue, but Padme's instincts, strategic, calculating, told her Soren was right. The Syndicate wouldn't hesitate to use her family as leverage. She nodded, pulling out her datapad and typing a brief message. I'm safe. I have to go. I'll explain when I can. I love you. Her hands shook as she sent it to Soren's comm. Soren gave a curt nod and opened the shuttle's hatch. Let's move! The shuttle's engines hummed as it broke through Arctis 4's atmosphere, the ice world shrinking to a pale blue dot against the starfield. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands gripping the armrests. The cockpit was cramped, littered with spare parts and half-repaired consoles, but it felt alive, like the Naboo Royal starship Padme had flown during the Trade Federation blockade. Lyra pushed the memory down, focusing on the present. Where are we going? She asked, watching Soren adjust the Navi computer. Ryloth, Soren replied. There's someone there who can help you understand what's happening to you. You mentioned them before, Lyra said, her voice cautious. Someone who knew Padme and Anakin. Who are they? Soren's jaw tightened, and for a moment Lyra thought she wouldn't answer. Her name's Ahsoka Tano, Soren said finally. She was Anakin's apprentice during the Clone Wars. She's complicated, but if anyone can help you navigate your memories, it's her. Lyra's breath caught. Ahsoka Tano. Padme's memories supplied flashes of a young Degruda with white and blue Leku, fierce and loyal, fighting beside Anakin. Lyra had heard rumors of Ahsoka's survival, whispered in Glint's cantinas. Stories of a warrior who'd walked away from the Jedi, who'd fought the Empire and lived. If Ahsoka was still alive, she might hold answers to Lyra's fractured identity. Why Ryloth? Lyra asked. It's a safe haven for now, Soren said. The Twi'leks have kept the Syndicate at bay, and Ahsoka's been working with their resistance, but it's a long trip. Get some rest. Lyra nodded, but sleep felt impossible. She leaned back, staring at the stars streaking past in hyperspace. Padme's memories surged again. Anakin's laugh, Leia's tiny hands, the Senate chamber's roar. She closed her eyes, trying to anchor herself in Lyra's life, but the lines between them were blurring. Hours later, the shuttle dropped out of hyperspace above Ryloth's rugged surface. The planet's deserts and canyons glowed under twin suns, a stark contrast to Arctis 4's ice. Soren guided the ship toward a hidden landing pad nestled in a rocky valley, its entrance camouflaged by wind-sculpted stone. As they descended, Lyra noticed a group of Twi'leks waiting, armed, wary, their Leku twitching as they scanned the shuttle. Soren powered down the engines and turned to Lyra. Stay close. Don't speak unless spoken to. The Twi'leks are allies, but they don't trust easily. Lyra followed Soren out of the shuttle, the dry heat hitting her like a wave. The Twi'leks parted, revealing a figure at the center of the group. Ahsoka Tano stood tall, her white and blue Leku marked by age, but vibrant, her green eyes sharp with wisdom. She wore a simple gray tunic, a lightsaber hilt clipped to her belt. Lyra's heart raced. Padme's memories flooded with warmth and respect for this woman, tempered by the pain of Anakin's fall. Soren, Ahsoka said, her voice calm but commanding. You're late. Had to dodge a Syndicate patrol, Soren replied, gesturing to Lyra. This is her. Ahsoka's gaze locked onto Lyra, and for a moment it felt like she was seeing straight through her. You're the one the Force has been whispering about, Ahsoka said, stepping closer. What's your name? Lyra Varn, she answered, her voice steadier than she felt. Padme's poise was seeping into her, grounding her under Ahsoka's scrutiny. Ahsoka tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. And something else. Something familiar. She paused, then said softly, Padme. Lyra's knees nearly buckled. How do you... The Force, Ahsoka interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. It carries the echoes of the past. I felt it when you were born again, though I didn't know what it meant until Soren contacted me. Come, we need to talk. Ahsoka led them into a cavern carved into the valley's cliffs, its walls lined with glowing fungi that cast a soft blue light. Twi'lek resistance fighters moved about, repairing weapons and studying holomaps. The air buzzed with purpose, reminding Lyra of the war rooms Padme had known during the Clone Wars. Inside a small chamber, Ahsoka gestured for Lyra and Soren to sit on stone benches. Tell me, Ahsoka said, her gaze fixed on Lyra. What do you remember? Lyra swallowed her throat dry. Everything. Naboo, the Senate, the Clone Wars, Anakin, Luke and Leia. My death. The last word came out as a whisper heavy with pain. Ahsoka's expression softened, but her eyes held a flicker of grief. Padme was a friend, a sister almost. Her loss, it changed everything. She leaned forward. But you're not just her. You're Lyra, too. The Force has woven your souls together for a reason. Do you know why? Lyra shook her head. I don't. I just know I can't ignore it. Soren said the Syndicate is a threat, that something darker is behind them. I want to help, but I don't know how. Ahsoka exchanged a glance with Soren, who nodded slightly. The Syndicate is more than a criminal network, Ahsoka said. They're consolidating power, arming themselves with weapons that we haven't seen since the Empire, maybe even before. We've intercepted shipments of crysium from Arctis 4, enough to build a fleet of warships. Lyra's stomach dropped. Crysium? From my home? Exactly, Soren said. Your world's minds are feeding their war machine. That's why they're watching Glint. They know something stirred the Force there. They just don't know it's you. Lyra's mind raced. Padme had faced threats like this, schemes hidden behind political facades, enemies pulling strings from the shadows. Who's leading them? She asked. We don't know, Ahsoka admitted. Their leader stays hidden, but they're cunning, patient, like a Sith, but different. Her voice held a trace of unease, rare for someone so composed. Lyra's thoughts flashed to Palpatine, his cold smile and endless manipulations. Could it be a Sith? She asked, her voice trembling. Ahsoka's jaw tightened. The Sith are gone. Darth Sidious was the last, and he fell at Exegol, but the dark side doesn't need a Sith to thrive. It finds other vessels. Soren leaned forward. That's why we need you, Lyra. Your memories, Padme's memories, give you insight we don't have. You knew the Republic's fall, the signs we missed. You can help us stop this before it becomes another empire. Lyra's hands clenched. I'm not a warrior. I'm not even sure who I am anymore. You're enough, Ahsoka said firmly. Padme wasn't a Jedi, but she fought with her mind, her heart. You have that strength. You just need to find it. Before Lyra could respond, a Twi'lek burst into the chamber, his Leku twitching with alarm. Ahsoka! Syndicate ships have just entered the system. 3 corvettes, heavily armed. They're scanning the surface. Ahsoka was on her feet in an instant, her hand resting on her lightsaber. How did they find us? Could be a tracker, Soren said, her eyes flicking to Lyra. Or they followed us from Arctis. Lyra's heart sank. Had she led the Syndicate here? Padme's guilt over Anakin, over the Republic, surged, mingling with her own fear. Get the defenses ready, Ahsoka ordered the Twi'lek. Soren, take Lyra to the secondary bunker. We'll hold them off. I can help, Lyra said, standing. Padme's resolve burned in her, drowning her doubt. I know their tactics. I've seen them before. Ahsoka studied her, then nodded. Stay with me, then. But you follow my lead. The valley erupted into chaos as Syndicate corvettes descended, their laser cannons carving red streaks through the twilight. Twi'lek fighters scrambled, firing from hidden turrets while Ahsoka led a small team to the surface. Lyra followed, clutching a blaster Soren had thrust into her hands. Her body moved with a confidence she didn't feel, Padme's muscle memory guiding her grip. The corvettes hovered low, deploying droid fighters, sleek black machines that screamed through the air. Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, their white blades humming as she deflected blaster bolts. Stay behind cover! She shouted to Lyra. Lyra ducked behind a boulder, her heart pounding. Padme had faced battle droids on Naboo, but Lyra had never fired a blaster. She peered out, spotting a droid advancing on a Twi'lek fighter. Her hand steadied, and she fired, the bolt striking the droid's core. It exploded in a shower of sparks. Good shot! Ahsoka called, her voice calm despite the chaos. Keep moving. Lyra nodded, her fear giving way to focus. Padme's memories flooded in, battle plans, formations, weaknesses, and droid designs. She shouted to the Twi'leks, Aim for the joints! They're vulnerable there! The fighters adjusted, their shots tearing through the droids' weak points, but the corvettes were closing in, their cannons pounding the valley. Lyra's mind raced. Padme had sabotaged ships during the Clone Wars. If they could disable one corvette, the others might retreat. Ahsoka! She yelled. Can you get me to that ship? She pointed to the nearest corvette, hovering low enough to deploy more droids. Ahsoka's eyes widened, but she nodded. Soren, cover us! Soren, wielding a blaster rifle, laid down suppressing fire as Ahsoka and Lyra sprinted toward the Corvette. Ahsoka used the Force to hurl debris at the droids, clearing a path. Lyra's legs burned, but she kept pace, Padme's courage driving her. They reached the Corvette's landing ramp, guarded by 2 humanoid mercenaries in black armor. Ahsoka dispatched them with a blur of her lightsabers, and Lyra followed her inside. The ship's interior was stark, its corridors lined with crysium-powered conduits, Arctis 4s or weaponized. "Engine room," Lyra said, her voice steady. "If we overload the reactor, it'll cripple the ship." Ahsoka raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. They moved quickly, avoiding patrols until they reached the engine room. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, Padme's knowledge merging with her own mechanic skills. She rerouted power, pushing the reactor past its limits. "Done!" she said, stepping back as alarms blared. "We have maybe 5 minutes." Ahsoka grabbed her arm. "Move!" They sprinted out, diving behind a ridge as the Corvette erupted in a fireball, its shockwaves shaking the valley. The other 2 ships broke off, retreating into the sky. The Twi'leks cheered, but Lyra's relief was short-lived. She'd just painted a target on herself. Back in the cavern, Ahsoka cleaned her lightsabers while Soren tended to the wounded. Lyra sat alone, her hands still trembling from the blaster's recoil. She'd acted on instinct, but the reality of what she'd done, sabotaging a warship, fighting alongside a Jedi, felt unreal. Ahsoka approached, her expression unreadable. "You did well out there. Padme would be proud." Lyra looked away. "I'm not her. Not really." "You are and you aren't," Ahsoka said. "The Force has given you her memories, her strength. But you're Lyra, too. You'll need both to face what's coming." "What is coming?" Lyra asked, her voice raw. "The Syndicate. They're not just criminals, are they?" Ahsoka's gaze darkened. They're a symptom, like I said. Something's pulling their strings. Something ancient, hungry. I've felt it in the Force, like a shadow growing stronger. Lyra's mind flashed to Palpatine again, but she pushed it down. "What do we do now?" "We train you," Ahsoka said. "Not as a Jedi, but as yourself. You have Padme's mind, her heart. We'll teach you to use them, and we'll find out who's behind the Syndicate before it's too late." Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. She was Lyra Varn, but she was also Padmé Amidala. The galaxy was calling, and she would answer. The Ryloth dawn painted the desert cliffs in hues of amber and gold, but Lyra Varn felt no warmth as she stood on a rocky outcrop facing Ahsoka Tano. The air was dry, the wind carrying grains of sand that stung her skin. Her hands gripped a staff, its weight unfamiliar yet oddly comforting, as if Padme's muscle memory recognized the balance of a weapon. Ahsoka stood opposite her, holding a similar staff, her white lightsabers clipped to her belt. Soren Cade watched from a nearby ridge, her expression unreadable. "You're not a Jedi," Ahsoka said, her voice calm but firm. "And I won't train you as one. But you need to be ready. Physically, mentally, emotionally. The Syndicate won't hesitate to exploit any weakness." Lyra nodded, her jaw tight. The battle against the Syndicate corvettes 2 days ago had left her shaken but resolute. She'd sabotaged a warship, guided by Padme's instincts, but she'd also felt the weight of her own inexperience. She was neither fully Lyra nor fully Padme, and the dissonance was a constant ache. Ahsoka's training was meant to bridge that gap, to forge her into something new. "Begin," Ahsoka said, raising her staff. Lyra lunged, swinging the staff in a clumsy arc. Ahsoka sidestepped effortlessly, her own staff snapping up to block. The impact jarred Lyra's arms, and she stumbled, sand crunching under her boots. "Too predictable," Ahsoka said. "You're thinking like a mechanic, not a fighter. Anticipate. Adapt." Lyra gritted her teeth, circling Ahsoka. Padme's memories surged, sparring with her handmaidens on Naboo, dodging blaster fire during the Clone Wars. She adjusted her grip, feinting left before striking right. Ahsoka parried again, but this time Lyra held her ground, pushing back with surprising strength. "Better," Ahsoka said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "But you're still holding back. Why?" Lyra hesitated, her breath ragged. "I don't know who I'm supposed to be. Lyra, Padme? I'm neither." Ahsoka lowered her staff, her green eyes piercing. "You're both. The Force didn't give you Padme's memories to erase Lyra. It gave them to you to make you stronger. Stop fighting yourself." The words hit like a blaster bolt. Lyra wanted to argue, to say she wasn't ready, but Padme's resolve, her unyielding determination, burned in her chest. She nodded, raising the staff again. "Let's go." For hours they trained it under Ryloth's blazing suns. Ahsoka was relentless, pushing Lyra through drills that tested her reflexes, strategy, and endurance. Between bouts, Ahsoka taught her to meditate, to listen to the Force, not as a Jedi, but as someone touched by its will. Lyra felt nothing at first, just the weight of her own doubts, but slowly a warmth stirred in her core, like a distant echo of Padme's courage. Soren joined them in the afternoons, teaching Lyra to handle a blaster and navigate starship systems. "You've got a knack for mechanics," Soren said one day, watching Lyra recalibrate a speeder's repulsors. "But you're thinking like a senator, too. That's rare." Lyra wiped sweat from her brow, Padme's memories of Senate debates mingling with her own calloused hands. "I just want to be useful," she said. "You already are," Soren replied, her voice softer than usual. "But you need to trust yourself. The galaxy's counting on it." That night in the Resistance's cavern base, Lyra sat with Ahsoka and a Twi'lek leader named Vera Chom, daughter of a Resistance hero from the Clone Wars. Vera's leku twitched as she spread a hollow map across a stone table, its blue light illuminating the chamber. The map showed Ryloth's sector, dotted with Syndicate-controlled trade routes and outposts. "They're moving faster than we expected," Vera said, her voice clipped. "They've taken 3 systems in the Outer Rim, all with crysium deposits like Arctis IV. Their ships are faster, stronger, crysium-powered, no doubt." Lyra's stomach churned. Her homeworld's ore was fueling this threat, and she'd been part of its extraction, however unknowingly. Padme's guilt over the Republic's fall, over Anakin, clawed at her, but she pushed it down. "What's their endgame?" she asked. "We don't know," Ahsoka admitted, her fingers tracing the hollow map. "They're not just criminals. They're building something. An army, a fleet. And they're doing it quietly, which is what worries me." Padme's memories flashed. Palpatine's schemes, the Separatists' hidden shipyards, the slow poison of corruption. "They're consolidating power," Lyra said, her voice steady, "like the Trade Federation before the Clone Wars. They want control, but they're waiting for something, or someone to unify them." Vera's eyes narrowed. "You sound like you've seen this before." Lyra hesitated, then met Ahsoka's gaze. "I have, or she did. Padmé Amidala." Vera frowned, but Ahsoka raised a hand. "She's telling the truth, Vera. The Force has brought Padmé's memories into Lyra. She's our ally." Vera's leku twitched, but she nodded. "Then we need your insight, Lyra. The Syndicate's next target is Kessel. If they control the spice mines, they'll have credits to fund their expansion indefinitely." Lyra's mind raced. Kessel was a powder keg. Its spice trade had always drawn criminals, from the Pikes to Jabba the Hutt. If the Syndicate seized it, they'd have resources to rival any government. "We can't let them take Kessel," she said. "We need to disrupt their supply lines, hit them where they're vulnerable." Ahsoka's lips curved slightly. "Spoken like a senator. What's your plan?" Lyra leaned over the hollow map, Padme's strategic mind taking over. "Their crysium shipments are the key. If we can intercept one, we'll disrupt their production and draw their attention. It'll give us a chance to learn who's pulling the strings." Vera nodded, impressed. "Risky, but bold. I like it." Soren, who'd been silent, spoke up. "There's a Syndicate convoy leaving Arctis IV in 3 days. We could hit it in the asteroid belt near Ord Mantell. It's a choke point, hard to defend, easy to ambush." Lyra's heart sank at the mention of Arctis IV. Her family was still there, vulnerable if the Syndicate retaliated, but Padme's voice whispered, "The greater good comes first." She nodded. "Let's do it." The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Lyra trained harder, her body aching but growing stronger. Ahsoka taught her to blend Padme's diplomacy with Lyra's practicality, while Soren drilled her on guerrilla tactics. The Twi'lek Resistance readied a small fleet, 3 modified freighters and a squadron of X-Wings salvaged from the New Republic era. Lyra felt the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders. A mantle Padme had worn with grace, but Lyra feared she couldn't carry. On the eve of the mission, Lyra found Ahsoka meditating in a secluded alcove, her lightsabers floating gently before her. The sight stirred Padme's memories of Obi-Wan and Anakin, their quiet moments of focus before battle. Lyra hesitated, then sat across from her. "Ahsoka," she said softly, "what if I fail? What if I'm not enough?" Ahsoka opened her eyes, the lightsaber settling into her hands. "You're asking the wrong question. It's not about being enough. It's about doing what you can." Padme never doubted her purpose, even when the odds were impossible. "You have that in you." Lyra looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. "But I'm not her. I'm just... me." Ahsoka leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Lyra, I knew Padme. She wasn't perfect. She made mistakes, loved too fiercely, trusted too much. But she never gave up. You're carrying her strength, but you're also carrying your own. That's what makes you dangerous to the Syndicate." Lyra met her gaze, a spark of resolve igniting. "And Anakin! You knew him too! What would he think of me?" Ahsoka's expression darkened, her leku twitching slightly. "Anakin, he loved Padme more than anything, but he lost himself to fear. If he could see you now, you think he'd be proud and afraid. Afraid of what you might become." The words hung heavy, but Lyra nodded. "I won't let fear control me." Ahsoka smiled faintly. "Good. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we fight." The asteroid belt near Ord Mantell was a chaotic maze of spinning rocks and dust clouds, perfect for an ambush but treacherous for navigation. Lyra sat in the cockpit of Soren's shuttle, now part of the Resistance fleet, her hands steady on the co-pilot's controls. Ahsoka commanded from a nearby X-wing, her voice crackling over the comm. "Stay sharp, the convoy's approaching." Lyra's heart pounded, but Padme's calm steadied her. She scanned the sensors, spotting the Syndicate convoy. 5 freighters escorted by a dozen droid fighters. The freighters were bulky, their hulls reinforced with crysium plating. "They're heavily armed," Lyra said. "We need to hit the escorts first, then board the lead freighter." "Agreed," Ahsoka replied. "Soren, take point. Lyra, you're with me for the boarding." The Resistance fleet sprang into action, X-wings weaving through asteroids to engage the droid fighters. Soren's shuttle dodged laser fire, its shields flaring as Lyra fired the turret, her shots precise thanks to Padme's training. 2 droid fighters exploded, but the freighters were closing ranks, their turbo lasers pounding the Resistance ships. "Now!" Ahsoka ordered. Her X-wing led the charge, Soren's shuttle following. They latched onto the lead freighter's hull, magnetic clamps securing them. Ahsoka and Lyra cut through the airlock, Soren covering their rear. Inside, the freighter's corridors were cold, lit by harsh white lights. Syndicate mercenaries, humans and aliens in black armor, opened fire. Ahsoka's lightsabers hummed, deflecting bolts, while Lyra ducked behind a crate, returning fire with her blaster. Padme's memories guided her aim, each shot finding its mark. "Cargo holds this way," Lyra said, recalling the freighter's layout from her mechanic days. They fought their way through, Ahsoka clearing a path while Lyra disabled security droids with quick, precise shots to their joints. The cargo hold was stacked with crysium crates, their surfaces shimmering with latent energy. Lyra's breath caught, enough ore to power a fleet. But something else caught her eye. A sealed container marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. A spiral with jagged edges. "Ahsoka, look at this," she called, kneeling beside the container. Padme's instincts screamed danger, but Lyra's curiosity pushed her to scan it with her datapad. The readings were off the charts. Some kind of energy signature, unlike anything she'd seen. "No time," Ahsoka said, her voice urgent. "We need to plant the charges and get out." Lyra nodded, setting explosive charges on the crysium crates, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the container held answers. As they retreated, a new alarm blared. Reinforcements. A Syndicate corvette had dropped out of hyperspace, its cannons targeting the Resistance fleet. "Fall back!" Ahsoka shouted over the comm. They sprinted to the airlock, reboarding the shuttle as the freighter's hull began to buckle from the charges. Soren gunned the engines, dodging debris as the freighter exploded, sending crysium fragments spinning into the asteroid belt. The Resistance fleet scattered, pursued by the corvette. Ahsoka's X-wing took a hit, its wings sparking, but she managed to limp back to the rendezvous point. Lyra's heart raced as they jumped to hyperspace, the corvette's fire fading behind them. Back on Ryloth, the Resistance celebrated a partial victory. The convoy was crippled, but the corvette's arrival meant the Syndicate was closing in. Lyra sat in the cavern, studying the datapad scan of the mysterious container. The symbol haunted her, stirring Padme's memories of ancient artifacts, Sith relics, things Palpatine had coveted. Ahsoka joined her arm bandaged from the X-Wing hit. "You did well out there," she said. "You're starting to trust yourself." Lyra looked up, her voice quiet. "That container. It's not just crysium. It's something else. Something old. I think it's connected to whoever's behind the Syndicate." Ahsoka's eyes narrowed. "You're sure?" "Padme's sure," Lyra said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "And I'm starting to listen to her." Ahsoka nodded, her expression grim. "Then we need to find out what it is. The Syndicate's moving faster than we thought. If they're collecting artifacts, they're not just building an army. They're chasing power we can't yet comprehend." Lyra's resolve hardened. She was Lyra Varn, but Padme's legacy was hers to wield. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of darkness, and she would face it no matter the cost. The Ryloth cavern was quiet, save for the soft hum of the Resistance's generators and the occasional murmur of those Twi'lek voices. Lyra Varn sat cross-legged on a stone bench, her datapad glowing with the scan of the mysterious container from the Syndicate freighter. The jagged spiral symbol haunted her, stirring Padme's memories of ancient texts and whispered warnings about Sith relics. Her fingers traced the screen, zooming in on the energy signature, erratic, almost alive, unlike anything she'd encountered as a mechanic or in Padme's political life. Ahsoka Tano entered, her white lightsabers clipped to her belt, her expression weary but alert. The bandage on her arm from the Ord Mantell ambush was gone, but the weight of their narrow victory lingered. "Any progress?" she asked, nodding at the datapad. Lyra shook her head, frustration gnawing at her. "The energy signature doesn't match any known tech. It's not crysium, not kyber, not even droid core readings. But this symbol..." She hesitated, Padme's instincts clashing with Lyra's caution. "I think it's old. Older than the Republic." Ahsoka's Aleku twitched, her green eyes narrowing. "Old enough to be Sith?" "Maybe," Lyra said, her voice low. Padme never dealt with Sith artifacts directly, but she heard rumors. Objects Palpatine sought, things tied to the dark side. This feels similar. Ahsoka leaned against the wall, her gaze distant. The Sith are gone, but their legacy lingers. If the Syndicate's collecting artifacts like this, they're not just after power, they're chasing something specific. Lyra's mind raced. Padme had faced Palpatine's schemes, his ability to hide in plain sight, the Syndicate's secrecy, their rapid expansion. It felt orchestrated like a plan decades in the making. "We need to know what this is," she said, tapping the datapad. "If we can trace its origin, we might find out who's leading them." Soren Cade strode in, her boots echoing on the stone floor. "Good luck with that," she said, her tone dry. "The Syndicate's covering their tracks. We hit their convoy, but they're already redirecting shipments. Farah's scouts say they're fortifying Kessel." Lyra's stomach twisted. Kessel's spice mines were a prize the Syndicate couldn't be allowed to claim. Padme's memories of trade disputes and criminal cartels surged, urging her to act. "We can't let them take Kessel," she said. "But we need more than a raid. We need intelligence. Where this artifact came from, who's supplying them?" Ahsoka nodded. "There's a black market hub on Nar Shaddaa. Smugglers, info brokers, artifact dealers, they all pass through. If anyone knows about that symbol, it's there." Lyra's heart sank. Nar Shaddaa, the smuggler's moon, was a cesspool of crime even in Padme's time. As Lyra, she'd only heard rumors of its neon-lit sprawl where credits bought loyalty and betrayal in equal measure. "That's a dangerous place to start," she said. "Which is why we're going," Soren said, a grin tugging at her lips. "You, me, and Ahsoka, small team in and out. We blend in, get answers, and leave before the Syndicate knows we're there." Lyra glanced at Ahsoka, who gave a slight nod. "You're ready for this, Lyra. Your instincts, Padme's and yours, are what we need. Trust them." Lyra swallowed, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just a mechanic anymore, nor was she only Padme. She was something new, and Nar Shaddaa would test that. "When do we leave?" "Dawn," Ahsoka said. "Get some rest. You'll need it." The journey to Nar Shaddaa took 2 days, the shuttle weaving through hyperspace routes to avoid Syndicate patrols. Lyra spent the time studying the datapad, cross-referencing the spiral symbol with Padme's memories of Senate archives and Jedi briefings. Nothing matched exactly, but fragments, References to pre-Republic cults, forbidden rituals, kept surfacing. Each clue tightened the knot in her chest. Soren piloted the shuttle, her hands steady on the controls. "You're quiet," she said, glancing at Lyra in the co-pilot's seat. "Nervous?" "Focused," Lyra corrected, though her palms were sweaty. "This symbol, it's not just a marker. It feels like a warning." Soren raised an eyebrow. You sound like a Jedi." "I'm not," Lyra said quickly. "But Padme worked with enough of them to know when something's wrong. This is wrong." Ahsoka, meditating in the rear of the cockpit, opened her eyes. "The Force is uneasy," she said. "I've felt it since we found that container. Whatever the Syndicate's after, it's not just power, it's control. Over something bigger than spice or crysium." Lyra's mind flashed to Palpatine's rise, how he'd manipulated entire systems to build his empire. She couldn't let that happen again. "Then we find out what it is," she said, her voice firm. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace above Nar Shaddaa, its surface a glittering maze of skyscrapers and neon. The moon pulsed with life. Ships darted between towers, their engines leaving trails of light. Soren guided them to a docking bay in the Undercity, a grimy district where the air smelled of ozone and spice. They disguised themselves as traders, Lyra in a hooded cloak, Ahsoka concealing her lekku under a head wrap, and Soren in a battered pilot's jacket. The streets were a chaos of noise and color, vendors hawking droid parts, cantinas blasting music, aliens of every species bartering or brawling. Lyra's senses were overwhelmed, but Padme's poise kept her steady, her eyes scanning for threats. Their target was a cantina called the Black Nebula, a known haunt for info-brokers. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the clink of credits. Lyra followed Ahsoka to a corner booth, where a Deveronian with a scarred horn sat nursing a drink. His eyes flicked up, assessing them. "You're late," he said, his voice a low growl. "Name's Corrin. Soren said you're looking for something unusual." Ahsoka slid into the booth, her demeanor calm but commanding. "We need information on a symbol. Spiral, jagged edges, tied to an artifact with a strange energy signature." Lyra pulled out her datapad displaying the scan. Corrin's eyes narrowed, his fingers tightening around his glass. "You're digging into dangerous territory," he said. "That's no ordinary mark. It's tied to the Vrenith cult." Lyra's heart skipped. Padme's memory stirred, vague references to pre-Republic sects whispered in Jedi Council chambers. "Who are they?" she asked. Corrin leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Old, forgotten, dangerous. The Vrenith were obsessed with the dark side, but not like the Sith. They worshipped something older. Some say a force, some say a being. They built relics to channel it, artifacts that could twist minds, bend reality. Most were destroyed millennia ago." "Most?" Ahsoka pressed. Corrin shrugged. "Rumors say some survived, hidden on dead worlds. The Syndicate's been sniffing around those rumors, buying up anything with that symbol. They're paying big, too. Credits and crysium." Lyra's mind raced. The container's energy signature, the Syndicate's obsession with crysium. It was all connected. "Where are they getting these artifacts?" she asked. Corrin smirked. "You want that? It'll cost extra." Soren slid a stack of credits across the table. Corrin pocketed them, then leaned in. "There's a dig site on Yavin 4, old temple, pre-Jedi. The Syndicate's got a team there, pulling relics like your container. But they're not just digging, they're guarding something big." Yavin 4. Lyra's breath caught. Padmé had known the moon as a rebel base, but its ancient temples were steeped in mystery. If the Syndicate was excavating there, they were closer to their goal than anyone realized. Before Lyra could ask more, the cantina's doors slammed open. Armored figures stormed in, Syndicate enforcers, their black visors gleaming. The lead enforcer, a tall human with a cybernetic arm, pointed at their booth. "That's them! Take them alive!" Chaos erupted. Patrons scrambled, blasters fired, and Ahsoka was on her feet, lightsabers igniting with a snap hiss. "Lyra! Soren! Get to the ship!" Lyra ducked as a bolt scorched the wall behind her. Soren fired her blaster, dropping 2 enforcers while Ahsoka carved through the rest, her white blades a blur. Lyra's heart pounded, but Padme's instincts took over. She grabbed Corrin's arm, pulling him with them. "You're coming with us. We need everything you know." Corrin cursed but followed, dodging blaster fire as they fought their way to the exit. The streets outside were no safer. Syndicate speeders roared overhead, their spotlights sweeping the crowd. Soren led them through alleys, her knowledge of Nar Shaddad's undercity keeping them ahead of pursuit. They reached the docking bay, piling into the shuttle as enforcers closed in. Soren gunned the engines, the ship lurching into the sky as laser fire grazed its shields. Lyra strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls to boost power to the rear deflectors. Padme's starship knowledge merged with Lyra's mechanical skill, keeping them alive as they broke atmosphere. "Nice flying," Corrin muttered from the back, clutching a safety harness. "But you've got a bigger problem. The Syndicate knew you were here. Someone's leaking your moves." Lyra exchanged a glance with Ahsoka, who was checking the sensors. "He's right," Ahsoka said. "They're too precise, too fast. We've got a traitor." Soren's jaw tightened. "We'll deal with that later. For now, we head to Yavin 4. If the Syndicate's digging there, we need to know what they're after." Lyra nodded, but her mind was on the traitor. Padmé had faced betrayal, Anakin's most of all, and the wound still ached. She pushed it down, focusing on the mission. Yavin 4 held answers, and she'd find them, no matter the cost. The journey to Yavin 4 was tense, the shuttle's cramped quarters filled with the hum of engines and unspoken questions. Corrin, now an uneasy ally, shared what little he knew. The Syndicate's dig site was heavily guarded, with droid sentries and crysium-powered turrets. The temple they were excavating was rumored to predate the Massassi, its chambers sealed by mechanisms no modern tech could crack. Lyra studied the datapad, the spiral symbol burning into her mind. Padmé's memories offered no clear answers, but a sense of dread grew. Something about the Vraneth cult felt wrong, like a shadow cast by something far older than the Sith. She meditated as Ahsoka had taught her, reaching for the Force, but found only whispers, fragments of Padmé's voice urging her to trust herself. Ahsoka noticed her struggle. "You're trying too hard," she said, sitting beside Lyra. "The Force isn't something you force. Let it guide you." "I don't know how," Lyra admitted. "Padmé wasn't Force-sensitive. I'm not sure I am either." "You don't need to be a Jedi to feel the Force," Ahsoka said. "Padmé felt it in her own way, through her love, her courage. You're doing the same. Trust that." Lyra nodded, but doubt lingered. She wasn't just fighting the Syndicate. She was fighting to understand who she was. Lyra? Or Padmé? Both? The answer felt closer on Yavin 4, but so did the danger. The shuttle landed in a jungle clearing, Yavin 4's red gas giant looming overhead. The air was thick with humidity, the chirps of wildlife mingling with the distant hum of machinery. The Syndicate's dig site was a kilometer away, hidden in a valley where ancient Massassi temples stood like silent sentinels. Ahsoka led the team, Lyra, Soren, and Corrin, through the jungle, her lightsabers ready. Lyra carried a blaster and her vibro knife, her senses heightened by Padmé's battle instincts. They reached the valley's edge, crouching behind vines to observe the dig site. Droid sentries patrolled a perimeter of crysium turrets, their red optics scanning the dark. At the center, a massive temple loomed, its entrance carved with the same jagged spiral symbol. "There," Lyra whispered, pointing. "That's what they are after." Corrin squinted. "Looks like a tomb. Vraneth built those to guard their relics or trap them." Soren checked her blaster. "We need to get inside. Any ideas?" Lyra's mind raced, Padmé's strategic brilliance taking over. "The turrets are crysium-powered. If we overload their grid, it'll disable the droids, too. I can rig a pulse from the shuttle's reactor." Ahsoka nodded. "Do it. Soren, Corrin, cover her." Lyra sprinted back to the shuttle, her hands moving with mechanical precision as she jury-rigged a pulse generator. Padmé's knowledge of sabotage, honed during the Clone Wars, guided her, but Lyra's ingenuity made it work. She returned, planting the device near the perimeter. The pulse surged, frying the turrets and droids in a shower of sparks. "Go!" Ahsoka hissed. They slipped into the temple, its corridors dark and oppressive. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy that made Lyra's skin crawl. Padmé's memory screamed danger. Sith temples, dark rituals, but she pressed on. They reached a central chamber, its walls etched with spirals and glyphs. At its heart stood a pedestal, holding a crystalline orb that pulsed with the same energy signature as the Syndicate's container. Lyra approached, her datapad scanning. "It's the same," she said. "Vraneth, but it's alive." Before Ahsoka could respond, the chamber shook. A hologram flickered to life, a figure cloaked in black, their face hidden by a hood. "You're persistent," the figure said, their voice distorted but chillingly familiar. "But you're too late. The spiral turns, and the galaxy will kneel." Lyra's blood ran cold. Padmé's instincts screamed Palpatine. But it couldn't be, could it? The figure vanished, and the chamber's walls rumbled, traps activating. Spikes shot from the floor, and droids emerged from hidden panels. Ahsoka's lightsabers flared, deflecting blaster fire. "Lyra, grab the orb! We're leaving!" Lyra lunged, snatching the orb as Soren and Corran fired at the droids. The orb burned her hands, its energy pulsing through her, but she held on, Padmé's courage drowning her fear. They fought their way out, the temple collapsing behind them. Back at the shuttle, Lyra clutched the orb, its light dimming but still alive. Ahsoka's face was grim. "That hologram. Whoever they are, they're the key, and they know we're coming." Lyra nodded, her resolve steeling. The Syndicate, the Vreneth, the Spiral. It was all connected to a darkness she'd faced before in another life. She wasn't just Lyra or Padmé anymore, she was their legacy, and she'd fight to protect the galaxy. The shuttle's cargo hold was dimly lit, the only sound the low hum of its engines as it streaked through hyperspace toward Ryloth. Lyra Varn sat on a crate, her hands cradling the crystalline Vreneth orb they'd retrieved from the Yavin 4 temple. Its surface pulsed faintly, a cold, rhythmic light that seemed to sync with her heartbeat. Each pulse stirred Padmé's memories, flashes of Sith holocrons, Palpatine's chilling presence, and a galaxy on the brink of a collapse. Lyra's fingers trembled, not from fear but from the weight of what she held, a relic tied to a darkness older than the Sith. Ahsoka Tano stood nearby, her arms crossed, her green eyes fixed on the orb. "It's dangerous," she said, her voice low. "I can feel it in the Force." Whatever the Vreneth were, they built that thing to channel something unnatural. Lyra nodded, her throat tight. "It's alive in a way. The energy signature, it's not just power, it's like it's thinking." And she glanced at her datapad, and its screen displaying erratic readings from the orb. Padmé's knowledge of ancient artifacts was limited, but Lyra's mechanical instincts told her this was no ordinary device. Soren Cade, leaning against the bulkhead, snorted. "Thinking! Great. So we stole a sentient bomb from a bunch of cultists. Perfect plan." Corran, the Deveronian info broker, shifted uncomfortably on a nearby crate. "It's not a bomb," he said, his scarred horn glinting in the dim light. "The Vreneth used orbs like that to commune with their god. Or so the legends say. Could be a key, a weapon, or something worse." "Worse how?" Lyra asked, her voice sharp. Padmé's diplomatic poise kept her calm, but Lyra's impatience was growing. Corran shrugged. "The stories are vague. The Vreneth believed in a force beyond the dark side, something that could reshape reality. They built temples to trap it, or maybe to free it. That orb might be a piece of their puzzle." Ahsoka's leku twitched, a rare sign of unease. "Then we need to understand it before the Syndicate comes looking. They knew we were on Nar Shaddaa, and they knew we'd hit Yavin 4. Someone's feeding them our moves." Lyra's stomach churned. The traitor's shadow loomed larger with every mission. Padmé had faced betrayal, Anakin's most of all, and the pain of that memory lingered, sharp and raw. "Could it be someone on Ryloth?" she asked. "Possible," Soren said, her eyes narrowing. "Vera's resistance is tight, but credits can loosen tongues. We'll need to watch our backs." Ahsoka nodded. "For now, we focus on the orb. Lyra, you're our best shot at decoding it. Your memories, Padmé's memories, give you insight we don't have." Lyra's grip tightened on the orb. "I'll try, but I need time and equipment. This isn't just mechanics, it's something else." "We'll get you what you need," Ahsoka said. "But we're running out of time. The Syndicate's not slowing down." Back on Ryloth, the Resistance base buzzed with tension. Vera Cham met them at the landing pad, her leku stiff with worry. "You stirred the hornet's nest," she said, her voice clipped. "Syndicate ships hit 2 of our outposts after you left Yavin 4. They're hunting you specifically." Lyra's heart sank. "Me?" Vera nodded, handing her a datapad with intercepted transmissions. "They're calling you the Anomaly. They know you're tied to the Force, even if they don't know how." Lyra scanned the transmissions, her mind racing. Padme's strategic instincts kicked in, analyzing the Syndicate's patterns. "They're not just retaliating," she said. "They're trying to draw us out. They want the orb. And me." Soren cursed under her breath. "Then we need to move fast. If they're this desperate, that orb's more important than we thought." Ahsoka's gaze was steely. "Vera, set up a secure lab for Lyra. Soren, Korin, check our defenses. I'll reach out to old contacts, see if anyone knows more about the Vreneth." Lyra clutched the orb, its cold light seeping into her skin. Padme's voice whispered, "Knowledge is power. Use it." She nodded. "I'll get to work." The lab was a cramped chamber carved into Ryloth's cliffs, its walls lined with scavenged tech, diagnostic scanners, power converters, and a hollow table flickering with static. Lyra set the orb on a pedestal, connecting it to her datapad via a jury-rigged interface. The energy readings spiked, the orb's pulses growing erratic. She worked alone, the silence broken only by the hum of machinery and her own steady breathing. Padme's memories guided her, recalling Senate briefings on ancient artifacts and Jedi warnings about dark side relics. But Lyra's mechanical skills were just as vital. She adjusted the scanners, filtering out interference to isolate the orb's core frequency. Hours passed, her focus unwavering until a pattern emerged. The orb wasn't just emitting energy. It was responding, like a beacon answering a call. She leaned back, her mind racing. "It's communicating," she muttered. "But with what?" A soft chime from the hollow table interrupted her. A new transmission, unencrypted, flickered to life. Lyra's blood ran cold as the same cloaked figure from Yavin 4 appeared, their voice distorted but chilling. "You hold a piece of the spiral anomaly," they said. "Return it or Arctis 4 burns." Lyra's heart stopped. Her family, Torin and Alara, were still on Arctis 4, defenseless against the Syndicate's wrath. Padme's guilt surged, but Lyra's resolve hardened. She shut off the transmission, her hands shaking. She needed answers now. The orb pulsed brighter, and a vision hit her like a tidal wave. She saw a desolate world, its sky blood red, its surface scarred with spirals. Figures in tattered robes chanted, their voices a low drone, as a massive gate loomed before them, its surface etched with the Vreneth symbol. The orb in her hands burned, and a voice, not Padme's, not her own, whispered, "The spiral turns. The gate opens." Lyra gasped, dropping the orb. It clattered to the floor, its light dimming. She scrambled to pick it up, her mind reeling. The vision felt real, like a memory, but it wasn't Padme's. It was something else, something ancient. Ahsoka burst into the lab, her lightsabers in hand. "Lyra, what happened? I felt a disturbance in the Force." Lyra's voice trembled as she recounted the vision and the transmission. Ahsoka's expression darkened. "The Syndicate knows you have the orb. They're baiting us, but that vision, it's a warning. The Vreneth's gate, whatever it is, must be their endgame." "We can't let them reach it," Lyra said, her voice firm despite her fear. "And we can't let them touch Arctis 4. Ahsoka nodded. "We'll protect your family, but we need to understand the orb. Can you keep working?" Lyra clutched the orb, its cold surface grounding her. "I have to." Over the next day, Lyra dove deeper into the orb's secrets, her exhaustion mounting but her focus unbreakable. Padme's analytical mind and Lyra's mechanical ingenuity worked in tandem, decoding fragments of the orb's energy patterns. She discovered it was a key, designed to interface with a larger system, a gate perhaps like the one in her vision. But its purpose remained elusive, and the Vreneth's history was a tangle of myth and fear. Soren and Koran returned with grim news. Syndicate forces were massing near Arctis 4, their ships equipped with crysium-powered weapons. Vera's scouts confirmed a blockade forming, cutting off the planet's trade routes. Lyra's heart ached for her parents, but Padme's strategic voice urged her to focus. Save the galaxy first, then save them. That night, Ahsoka called a war council in the main cavern. Vera, Soren, Korin, and a dozen Twi'lek fighters gathered around the holotable, its map showing Arctis 4's system. "The Syndicate's making their move," Ahsoka said. "They're using Arctis 4 to lure us. We can't ignore it, but we can't rush in blindly." Lyra stood, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "We hit their blockade, but not head-on. We use their own tactics against them. Guerrilla strikes, sabotage. I could disable their crysium reactors, just like on the freighter. It'll give us an edge." Vera's Leku twitched, impressed. "You're thinking like a general. But it's risky. If we fail, Arctis 4 pays the price. I know, Lyra said, her eyes meeting Ahsoka's, but I won't let my home burn, and I won't let the Syndicate win. Ahsoka nodded. Then we move at dawn. Lyra, you and Soren will lead the sabotage team. I'll coordinate the fleet. Corran, you're with me. Your knowledge of Syndicate tech could tip the scales. Corran grinned, his horn glinting. Never thought I'd fight for free, but you're growing on me. The Resistance fleet jumped to Arctis 4's system, a motley collection of X-Wings, freighters, and Twi'lek shuttles. Lyra sat in Soren's shuttle, the Vreneth orb secured in a shielded case beside her. Its pulses had slowed, but she felt its presence, like a whisper in her mind. Padmé's memories of Anakin's fall haunted her. Fear had driven him to darkness. She wouldn't let it consume her. The Syndicate blockade loomed ahead, a dozen ships orbiting Arctis 4's icy surface. Their flagship, a sleek destroyer, bristled with crysium-powered turrets. Lyra's heart pounded. She could see Glint's lights twinkling below, her home now a target. Ready? Soren asked, her hands steady on the controls. Lyra nodded, clutching her blaster. Let's do this! Ahsoka's voice crackled over the comm. Engage the fighters. Sabotage team, you're clear. The Resistance fleet struck, X-Wings weaving through laser fire as Soren's shuttle slipped past the blockade, cloaked by a stolen Syndicate transponder. Lyra's team, herself, Soren, and 2 Twi'lek techs, boarded the destroyer via a maintenance hatch, avoiding patrols. The ship's corridors were stark, its walls humming with crysium energy. Lyra led the way, her datapad guiding them to the reactor core. Padmé's sabotage skills and Lyra's mechanical expertise made her movements precise. She disabled security sensors, rerouted power to mask their presence. But the orb in its case seemed to pulse louder, as if sensing the crysium around them. They reached the reactor, a massive chamber pulsing with blue light. Lyra set to work, her hands flying over the controls as she overloaded the crysium conduits. 2 minutes, she said, sweat beading on her brow. Then the ship's dead in the water. Soren kept watch, her blaster ready. Hurry, we've got company! Footsteps echoed. Syndicate enforcers, led by a figure in black armor, their face hidden by a visor. The anomaly, the figure hissed, their voice distorted. You shouldn't have come! Lyra's blood ran cold. It wasn't the cloaked figure from the hologram, but the tone was too similar. She grabbed the orb's case, her blaster raised. Soren, now! Soren fired, dropping 2 enforcers, but the leader advanced, a vibroblade crackling in their hand. Lyra ducked, Padmé's combat training kicking in as she rolled and fired, grazing the leader's armor. The Twi'lek techs planted the last charges, and the reactor began to whine, its lights flickering. Go! Lyra shouted. They sprinted for the hatch, the leader in pursuit. The orb pulsed wildly, its energy surging through Lyra, amplifying her senses. She felt the leader's movements, anticipated their strike, and spun, disarming them with a precise kick. Padmé's voice roared, Fight! The reactor exploded as they reached the shuttle, the blast rocking the destroyer. Soren gunned the engines, dodging debris as the blockade faltered, the Resistance fleet pressing the advantage. Ahsoka's X-Wing led the charge, crippling the remaining ships. Back on Ryloth, Lyra collapsed in the cavern, the orb still in its case. Her body ached, but her mind was clear. They'd saved Arctis 4, for now, but the Syndicate's leader was still out there, and the orb's secrets were far from solved. Ahsoka approached, her expression grim but proud. You did it, Lyra. You saved your home. Lyra shook her head. Not yet. The orb, it's connected to something bigger. That vision, the gate. We need to find it before they do. Soren joined them, her face bruised but determined. Corran's digging into Syndicate comms. He thinks the traitor's closer than we thought, maybe even in the Resistance. Lyra's heart sank, but Padmé's resolve steadied her. Then we root them out, and we stop the Syndicate, whatever it takes. Ahsoka nodded, her eyes gleaming with purpose. The spiral's turning, Lyra. But so are we. The Ryloth cavern was a fortress of stone and shadow, but to Lyra Varn, it felt like a trap waiting to spring. She sat in the Resistance's command center, the Vreneth orb resting on a padded cradle before her, its crystalline surface pulsing with a faint, unsettling light. The air hummed with tension. Since their victory at Arctis 4, the Syndicate had gone silent, their blockade retreating without explanation. To Lyra, it wasn't a reprieve. It was a prelude. Padmé's instincts, honed by years of political intrigue, screamed that the enemy was regrouping, and the traitor within the resistance was the key to their next move. Ahsoka Tano stood at the holotable, her white lightsabers clipped to her belt, her green eyes scanning a map of the outer rim. Veracham, the Twi'lek resistance leader, paced nearby, her leku twitching with agitation. Soren Cade and Karan, the Devaronian infobroker, sorted through intercepted syndicate comms, their faces grim. The room was a powder keg, and Lyra felt the weight of every gaze. "We can't keep playing defense," Vera said, her voice sharp. "The syndicate's quiet, but they're not gone. They're planning something big, and we're blind without knowing who's feeding them our plans." Lyra's fingers brushed the orb, its cold surface sending a shiver through her. "The traitors are priority," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "They knew we were on Nar Shaddaa, Yavin 4, Arctis 4. They're close. Someone in this base." Soren's eyes narrowed. "You're sure it's one of us?" "Positive," Lyra said, Padme's analytical mind taking over. "The syndicate's moves are too precise. They're not guessing. They're being told." Ahsoka's leku twitched, her gaze distant. "The Force is clouded. I've tried to sense the traitor, but something's blocking me. It's not just betrayal. It's deliberate concealment." Karan leaned back, his scarred horn glinting. "Could be tech. Syndicate's got crysium-powered jammers that mess with sensors. Maybe they've got something that scrambles the Force, too." Lyra's mind raced. Padme had dealt with espionage, Trade Federation spies, Senate leaks, but this felt different, darker. The orb pulsed under her hand, and a fragment of her vision from the lab resurfaced. The blood-red sky, the chanting figures, the spiral gate. She pushed it down, and focusing on the present. "We need to flush them out," she said. "Set a trap. Leak a fake plan to see who takes the bait." Vera stopped pacing, her eyes narrowing. "Risky! If it backfires, we lose more than we gain." "It's our only shot," Lyra said, her voice firm. Padme's diplomatic poise steadied her, but Lyra's determination drove her words. "We can't keep running blind." Ahsoka nodded. "Agreed. Lyra, you and Soren work on the orb. We'll need its secrets to understand the Syndicate's endgame. Vera, Corran, and I will set the trap. We'll leak a fake raid on a Syndicate outpost on Dantooine. Small, isolated, tempting." Lyra's heart pounded. The plan was sound, but the orb's pulses felt like a warning. Padme's memories of betrayal, Anakin's turn, Palpatine's lies clawed at her, but she buried them. She was Lyra now, and she'd face this head-on. The lab was a haven of focus, its walls lined with scavenged tech that hummed softly in the dim light. Lyra worked alone, the Vrenith orb connected to a diagnostic array she'd rigged from spare parts. Its energy signature was unlike anything she'd seen, neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between, like a heartbeat woven into the Force. Padme's knowledge of ancient artifacts guided her, while Lyra's mechanical skills let her probe deeper, isolating the orb's core frequency. Hours passed, her exhaustion mounting, but she pushed on. The orb was a key, she was sure of it, designed to unlock the spiral gate from her vision, but its pulses were growing erratic, as if reacting to her presence. She adjusted the array, and a low hum filled the room, followed by a flicker of light. The orb projected a hologram. A map, fragmented and incomplete, showing a cluster of stars in the unknown regions. Lyra's breath caught. The map was ancient, its coordinates predating the Republic, but one planet stood out, a desolate world marked with the Vrenith spiral. Her vision flashed again. The gate, the chanting, the red sky. This was the place, the heart of the Syndicate's plan. She was about to call Ahsoka when the lab's door hissed open. One of Vera's lieutenants, a young Twi'lek named Rin, stood there, his leku tense. "Lyra, Ahsoka needs you in the command center. Now!" Something in his tone set her on edge. Padme's instinct screamed caution, but Lyra kept her face neutral. "What's wrong?" "Syndicate ships," Rin said, his eyes avoiding hers. "They hit Dantooine before we could set the trap." Lyra's blood ran cold. The fake raid hadn't even been sent out yet. Only the War Council knew about it. Rin's unease, his hurried words. It was him. He was the traitor. She grabbed the orb, slipping it into its shielded case, and followed Rin, her vibra knife hidden in her sleeve. Padme's diplomatic training kept her calm, but Lyra's heart raced. She needed proof, and she needed to act fast. The command center was chaos. Ahsoka stood at the holotable, her face grim as she studied incoming reports. Vera shouted orders to her fighters while Soren and Karan analyzed Syndicate ship movements. Lyra entered, Rin at her side, and caught Ahsoka's eye. She gave a subtle nod, signaling her suspicion. "Dantooine's gone dark," Ahsoka said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "The Syndicate hit our outpost before we could move. They knew our plan." Vera's Leku snapped in anger. "How? We didn't send the fake transmission." Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting on the orb's case. "Because someone told them." She turned to Rin, her voice calm but cutting. "Didn't you, Rin?" The room froze. Rin's eyes widened, his Leku twitching violently. "What are you talking about? Don't!" Lyra interrupted, Padme's authority ringing in her tone. "You knew about Dantooine. You were in the War Council. And you've been acting nervous since Nar Shaddaa." Rin's hand twitched toward his blaster, but Soren was faster, her own weapon trained on him. "Don't move!" she growled. Ahsoka stepped closer, her lightsabers unclipped but unignited. "Why, Rin? You've fought with us for years." Rin's face twisted, a mix of fear and defiance. "You don't understand. The Syndicate, they have my family. They threatened to burn Ryloth if I didn't cooperate." Lyra's heart ached. Padme's memories of Anakin's desperation, driven by fear for her, echoed Rin's words. But Lyra's resolve held firm. "You could have told us," she said. "We'd have protected them." Rin laughed bitterly. "Protected them? You're losing, Ahsoka. The Syndicate's too strong. They have something older than the Jedi, than the Sith. I had no choice." Ahsoka's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, something?" Rin hesitated, then spat. "The spiral. They're waking it. The gate. It's real. And you can't stop it." Before Lyra could react, Rin lunged, not for her, but for the orb's case. She dodged, Padme's combat training kicking in as she swept his legs, sending him crashing to the floor. Soren pinned him, her blaster pressed to his back. "Lock him up," Ahsoka ordered, her voice cold. "We'll deal with him later." As Rin was dragged away, Lyra handed Ahsoka the orb's case. "He confirmed it," she said. "The gate from my vision. It's what they're after. I found a map in the orb. It points to a planet in the unknown regions." Ahsoka's expression darkened. "Then that's where we're going. But first, we need to secure Ryloth. The Syndicate's coming for us. And the orb." The Syndicate's retaliation was swift. Within hours, sensors detected a fleet approaching Ryloth. 3 destroyers, a dozen corvettes, and swarms of droid fighters, all powered by crysium. Vera's resistance scrambled, their meager fleet no match for the onslaught. Lyra stood in the command center, the orb's map projected on the holotable, its coordinates burning into her mind. "We can't hold them here," Vera said, her voice grim. "We need to evacuate." "No," Lyra said, her tone firm. Padme's strategic brilliance surged, blending with Lyra's determination. "We make a stand. If we run, they will hunt us down. We use the terrain. Ryloth's canyons are perfect for an ambush. We hit their flagship, disrupt their command." Ahsoka raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You're thinking like Padme." "I'm thinking like me," Lyra corrected, a spark of confidence igniting. She was both Lyra and Padme now, their strengths intertwined. Soren grinned. "I like it. Risky, but bold. Let's do it." The plan was simple, but brutal. Lure the Syndicate fleet into Ryloth's canyons, where the Resistance's X-Wings and ground turrets could exploit the terrain. Lyra and Soren would board the flagship, sabotaging its crysium reactor while Ahsoka led the aerial assault. Corran, despite his grumbling, agreed to hack Syndicate comms, sowing confusion. As dawn broke, the Syndicate fleet descended, their ships casting shadows over the desert. Lyra stood at the canyon's edge, the orb's case strapped to her back, her blaster ready. Padme's memories of Naboo's liberations flooded her. Guerrilla tactics, desperate odds. She was ready. Ahsoka's voice crackled over the comm. "Now!" The Resistance struck. X-Wings diving through the canyons, their lasers carving through droid fighters. Ground turrets hidden in the cliffs pounded the corvettes, while Soren's shuttle slipped through the chaos, cloaked by Corran's hacked transponder. Lyra's heart raced, but her focus was unshakable. They boarded the flagship through a ventral hatch, avoiding patrols. The ship's interior was a maze of crysium conduits, their blue glow casting eerie shadows. Lyra led the way, her datapad guiding them to the reactor core. The orb pulsed in its case, its energy spiking as they neared the reactor. "It's reacting," Lyra whispered, her voice tense. "The crysium. It's amplifying the orb's signal." Soren's eyes narrowed. "Then we shut it down fast." They reached the reactor, a massive chamber humming with power. Lyra worked quickly, rerouting conduits to overload the system, but the orb's pulses grew frantic, triggering another vision. The gate, now opened, spilling a darkness that consumed the stars. A voice, not Padme's, not her own, whispered, "You cannot stop the spiral." Lyra staggered, clutching the console. Soren grabbed her arm. "Lyra, stay with me!" "I'm fine!" Lyra gasped, shaking off the vision. She finished the sabotage, the reactor whining as it destabilized. "We've got 3 minutes." They sprinted for the hatch, but the corridors were alive with enforcers. The same black-armored figure from Arctis 4 blocked their path, their vibroblade crackling. "The orb!" they hissed. "Give it to me!" Lyra drew her blaster, Padme's combat instincts guiding her. "Not a chance!" The fight was brutal, Soren's blaster and Lyra's vibro knife barely holding off the figure's relentless attacks. The orb's pulses surged, amplifying Lyra's senses. She anticipated the figure's moves, disarming them with a precise strike. Soren finished them with a shot to the chest, but more enforcers were coming. They reached the shuttle as the reactor exploded, the flagship shuddering. Soren gunned the engines, weaving through the canyon as the Syndicate fleet faltered, their command structure in chaos. Ahsoka's X-Wing led the resistance to victory, driving the remaining ships into retreat. Back in the cavern, Lyra sat with the orb, its light dim but still pulsing. Ahsoka, bruised but unbroken, studied the map Lyra had extracted. "The unknown regions," she said. "That's where the gate is. We need to go there, but we can't leave Ryloth defenseless." Lyra nodded, her resolve unshaken. "The orb's the key. I felt it during the fight. It's connected to the gate, to whatever the Syndicate's waking. We can't let them get it." Soren, nursing a cut on her arm, leaned in. "Rin's talking. Says the Syndicate's leader calls themselves the Shaper. Claims they're not Sith, but something older. He doesn't know their face." Corrin snorted. "Great! A mystery boss with a god complex. Just what we needed." Lyra's mind flashed to the cloaked figure's hologram, their chilling voice. Padme's memories of Palpatine lingered. But this was different, colder, more primal. "We need to move," she said. "The unknown regions, the gate. It's our only shot to end this." Ahsoka met her gaze, her eyes gleaming with pride. "You're ready, Lyra. You're not just Padme or Lyra anymore. You're something new." Lyra smiled faintly, the weight of her dual identity settling into strength. "Then let's finish this." The stars in the unknown regions were cold and unfamiliar, their patterns defying the maps Illyra Varn had studied in both her lives. She sat in the cockpit of Soren Cade's shuttle, the Vreneth orb secured in its shielded case beside her, its faint pulses a constant reminder of the danger ahead. The shuttle's engines hummed softly, cutting through the void toward a desolate planet marked on the orb's ancient map, a world of blood-red skies and jagged spirals, the heart of the Vreneth cult's legacy. Ahsoka Tano stood behind her, her white lightsabers clipped to her belt, her green eyes scanning the sensors. Soren piloted with steady hands, while Koran, the Deveronian and info broker, tinkered with a comm jammer in the rear. The Resistance fleet, now reduced to a handful of X-Wings and freighters after the Ryloth battle, followed in tight formation. Lyra felt the weight of their mission pressing on her. The spiral gate, whatever it was the Syndicate's endgame, and she was the key to stopping it. "The planet's coming up," Soren said, her voice clipped. "No name, no records, just coordinates from that orb. Sensors are picking up heavy interference. Crysium-based, like the Syndicate's tech." Lyra's fingers brushed the orb's case, its pulses syncing with her heartbeat. Padme's memories surged, Senate briefings on lost worlds, Jedi warnings about ancient threats, but they offered no clear answers. The vision of the gate haunted her, a massive structure under a crimson sky, its spirals glowing with a power that felt alive, hungry. "It's there," she said, her voice steady as despite the dread in her gut. "The gate. I can feel it." Ahsoka's Lekka twitched, her gaze sharpening. "The Force is strong here, but it's twisted, like a wound that never healed. Stay sharp, Lyra. Whatever's waiting, it's not just the Syndicate. Corrin looked up from his jammer, his scarred horn glinting. Great! So we're walking into a trap set by a cult older than the stars. Any chance we can turn back? No, Lyra said, her tone firm. Padmé's resolve burned in her, but Lyra's determination anchored it. The Shaper, whoever they are, once the gate open, we stop them here, or the galaxy pays the price. Soren grinned, though her eyes were hard. Spoken like a queen. Let's hope you're right. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, revealing a barren world below. Its surface was scarred with canyons and spirals, its atmosphere a sickly red haze. Syndicate ships orbited the planet. A destroyer flanked by corvettes, their crysium-powered hulls gleaming. Lyra's heart sank. They were outnumbered, but retreat wasn't an option. Ahsoka activated the comm. Resistance fleet, engage the escorts. Keep them off our tail. Soren, get us to the surface. The fleet dove into action, X-wings weaving through laser fire as Soren piloted the shuttle through the blockade. Lyra gripped the co-pilot's controls, her mechanical instincts merging with Padmé's tactical mind to boost the shields. A corvette's turbo laser grazed them, the impact shaking the hull, but Soren's skill kept them airborne. They landed in a canyon near the gate's coordinates, the air thick with dust and an oppressive energy. Lyra stepped out, the orb's case strapped to her back, her blaster ready. The landscape was alien, its spirals carved into the rock like scars. Padmé's memories of Sith temples surfaced, but this was older, more primal. Ahsoka led the way, her lightsabers unignited but poised. Soren and Corrin flanked her, their weapons drawn. The gate loomed ahead, a massive arch of black stone, its surface etched with the Vrenith spiral, glowing with a sickly green light. Syndicate droids patrolled its base, their red optics scanning the dark. We need to get inside, Lyra said, her voice low. The orb's the key. I'm sure of it. Soren nodded, checking her blaster. Then we hit hard and fast. Corrin, jam their comms. Ahsoka, you take the droids. Lyra, stay close. Corrin activated his jammer, static crackling over the Syndicate's channels. Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, their white blades slicing through the droids in a blur. Lyra and Soren followed, dodging blaster fire as they reached the gate's entrance. The orb pulsed wildly, its light spilling through the case, as if drawn to the structure. Lyra knelt before a control panel, its interface ancient but familiar. Padmé's knowledge of pre-Republic tech guided her, while Lyra's mechanical skills let her bypass the locks. The orb's pulses synced with the gate, and a low hum filled the air as the spirals glowed brighter. It's working, Lyra said, her heart racing, but the hum became a roar, and the ground shook. A hologram flickered above the gate, the cloaked figure of the Shaper, their face still hidden, their voice a chilling rasp. You're too late, Anomaly, they said. The spiral turns and the gate opens. You cannot stop what was set in motion millennia ago. Lyra's blood ran cold. Padmé's memories of Palpatine surged, but this was different. Colder, more ancient. Who are you? She demanded, her voice echoing. The Shaper laughed, a sound that cut through her like a blade. I am the end of your galaxy's light. The Vrenith knew me, and you will too. The hologram vanished, and the gate's spirals pulsed violently, a crack of energy splitting the air. Lyra stumbled back, the orb burning in its case. A vision hit her, stronger than before. The gate fully open, a darkness spilling out, consuming stars, worlds, lives. The voice whispered again, the spiral is eternal. Lyra! Ahsoka's shout snapped her back. Syndicate enforcers poured from hidden tunnels, their black armor gleaming. Ahsoka's lightsabers flashed, deflecting bolts, while Soren and Corrin fired back, their shots precise but overwhelmed. Lyra drew her blaster, Padmé's combat instincts guiding her. She fought beside Ahsoka, her movements fluid, as if the Force itself steadied her. The orb's pulses amplified her senses. She dodged a vibroblade, disarmed an enforcer, and covered Soren as she planted explosives on the droid control hub. We need to shut the gate, Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The orb! It's powering it! Ahsoka nodded, carving a path to the control panel. Lyra followed, the orb's case heavy on her back. She connected it to the panel, its pulses syncing with the gate's energy. The hum grew deafening, and the spirals glowed brighter, the crack widening. Stop! A new voice roared. A figure in black armor emerged, their visor cracked, revealing a human face. A woman, her eyes blazing with fanaticism. The Shaper will have the orb, and the galaxy will kneel. Lyra recognized her, the leader from Arctis 4, now unmasked. You're wrong, Lyra said, her voice steady. The gate stays closed. The woman lunged, her vibroblade arcing toward Lyra. Ahsoka intercepted, her lightsabers blocking the strike, but the woman was relentless, her armor enhanced with crysium. Lyra worked fast, rerouting the orb's energy to overload the gate systems. Padme's sabotage skills and Lyra's mechanical expertise merged, her hands moving with precision. The gate shook, its spirals flickering. The woman screamed, charging Lyra, but Soren tackled her, pinning her to the ground. Finish it! Soren yelled. Lyra slammed the final command into the panel. The orb's light flared, then died, the gate's hum fading to silence. The cracks sealed, the spirals dimming. The enforcers faltered, their droid support offline, and Ahsoka's team pressed the advantage, driving them back. The woman laughed even as Soren restrained her. You think you've won? The Shaper sees all. The gate will open, with or without you. Lyra's heart pounded, but she met the woman's gaze. Not today. Back on the shuttle, the team regrouped, battered but alive. The orb, now inert, sat in its case, its secrets partially revealed but still dangerous. Ahsoka studied the prisoner, the syndicate leader, who sat in binders, her eyes defiant. She won't talk easily, Ahsoka said, her voice low, but she knows the Shaper. We'll get answers. Lyra nodded, her mind racing. The gate was closed, but the syndicate's fleet was still out there, and the Shaper's threat lingered. Padmé's memories of Palpatine's manipulations haunted her, but Lyra's resolve was stronger. She was no longer just a vessel for Padmé's past. She was Lyra Varn, forged by both lives. Soren clapped her shoulder. You did good, kid. Saved the galaxy, at least for today. Corran snorted. Yeah, but I'm not signing up for another suicide run. That gate gave me the creeps. Lyra smiled faintly, but her eyes were on the orb. It's not over, she said. The Shaper's still out there, and they want the gate open. We need to find them. Ahsoka's gaze was steely. We will, but first we regroup on Ryloth. The Resistance needs to rebuild, and you need to prepare. The Shaper knows you're the key, Lyra. They'll come for you. Lyra's hand rested on the orb's case, its silence more ominous than its pulses. Let them come, she said, her voice a blend of Padmé's courage and Lyra's fire. I'm ready. The return to Ryloth was somber, the Resistance fleet limping back with losses. Vera met them at the landing pad, her leku sagging with relief, but her eyes heavy. You stopped the gate, she said, but the Syndicate's not done. They hit Kessel while you were gone. They've got the spice mines. Lyra's stomach twisted. Kessel's fall was a blow, giving the Syndicate credits to fuel their war. Padmé's strategic mind analyzed the loss, but Lyra's heart ached for the lives caught in the crossfire. We'll take it back, she said. But first we interrogate the prisoner. She knows the Shaper. In the cavern's brig, the Syndicate leader sat in a force field, her face unyielding. Lyra stood before her, Ahsoka at her side. Who's the Shaper? Lyra demanded, her voice carrying Padmé's authority. The woman smirked. You'll meet them soon enough, Anomaly. The spiral doesn't end. It turns forever. Ahsoka leaned closer, her presence commanding. You're loyal, but you're not stupid. Talk, or you'll face the Resistance's justice. The woman's eyes flickered, but she said nothing. Lyra's mind raced. Padmé had broken spies with words, not force. You said the gate will open, Lyra said softly, but you've seen what it does. It's not power, it's destruction. Is that what you want? For a moment the woman's defiance wavered, but she clamped her jaw shut. Ahsoka pulled Lyra aside. She's scared of the Shaper, she whispered. We'll need time to crack her. Lyra nodded, but the orb's silence weighed on her. She returned to the lab, studying its inert form. Without its pulses, it was just crystal. But she felt its potential, like a storm waiting to break. She meditated, as Ahsoka had taught her, reaching for the Force. It wasn't strong in her, but it was there. A warmth, a connection to Padmé's love, her courage. A new vision came, softer this time. Luke and Leia, their faces young but strong, fighting for hope. Padmé's pride swelled, but Lyra's resolve anchored it. She wasn't just their mother reborn. She was their legacy, fighting for the galaxy they'd saved. Soren entered, her face grim. "We've got a problem. Corran's picked up syndicate chatter. They're massing for a final strike on Ryloth. They want the orb, and they're bringing everything they've got." Lyra stood, her hand resting on her blaster. "Then we prepare. The Shaper thinks they can break us. They're wrong." The Resistance mobilized, fortifying Ryloth's canyons with turrets and traps. Lyra worked with Vera's techs, rigging crysium-based defenses from salvage syndicate tech. Padme's strategic brilliance guided her, while Lyra's ingenuity made it work. She was no longer torn between her identities. They were one, a blade forged in fire. Ahsoka found her at dusk, the red sky eerily reminiscent of her visions. "You've changed," Ahsoka said, a faint smile on her lips. "You're not just carrying Padme's memories. You're Lyra Varn, and you're ready." Lyra met her gaze, her heart steady. "I am, but the Shaper... They're not just a leader. There's something else. I felt it in the vision. We're not fighting a person. We're fighting a force." Ahsoka's expression darkened. "Then we fight together. For Padme, for Luke, for Leia, for everyone who's fought for the light." As the Syndicate fleet appeared on the horizon, Lyra gripped the orb's case, its silence a challenge. The spiral might turn, but she'd stop it. She was Lyra Varn, Padmé Amidala, and the galaxy's hope. Ahsoka Tano stood beside her, her white lightsabers clipped at her belt, her green eyes scanning the horizon. Soren Cade checked her blaster rifle, her face set with grim determination. Vera Cham, the Twi'lek resistance leader, coordinated defenses from the command center, while Corran, the Deveronian and info broker, jammed Syndicate comms from a nearby console. The air crackled with tension. The Syndicate's final strike was here, and with it, the Shaper's true purpose. "They're coming for the orb," Lyra said, her voice steady. "And me. They know I'm the key to the gate." Ahsoka's Lekka twitched, her gaze sharp. "Then we protect you and destroy the gate's power source. The Shaper won't stop until it's open." Lyra nodded, her hand resting on the orb's case. The visions of the spiral gate, its blood-red sky, its consuming darkness, haunted her, but she pushed them aside. Padme's memories of Anakin's fall, of Palpatine's betrayal, had taught her one thing. Fear was the enemy's weapon. She wouldn't let it win. Vera's voice crackled over the comm. "Syndicate ships are entering the canyons. 3 destroyers, 10 corvettes, droid fighters. They're not holding back." Soren grinned, though her eyes were hard. "Good. Neither are we." Ahsoka activated her comm. "Resistance. Engage. Draw them into the canyons. Lyra, Soren, you're with me. We get to the prisoner. She knows the Shaper. She's our last lead." Lyra's heart pounded, but her resolve was unbreakable. The Syndicate leader they'd captured on the Unknown Regions planet had refused to talk, but Lyra knew how to break her. Padme's diplomatic skill, honed in the Senate, would find a way. The canyons erupted into chaos as the Resistance fleet struck, X-wings weaving through laser fire, ground turrets pounding the Syndicate's corvettes. Lyra, Ahsoka, and Soren moved through the base, dodging debris as a destroyer's bombardment shook the cliffs. The orb's case felt heavier with every step, its silence a warning of the power it held. They reached the brig, where the Syndicate leader, Kalia Vren they'd learned, sat in a force field, her black armor stripped, her eyes blazing with defiance. Lyra stepped forward, Padme's poise guiding her. "Kalia," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "The Shaper's using you. The gate isn't power, it's destruction. Tell us who they are, and we can stop this." Kalia laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You think you can stop the spiral? The Shaper is beyond you, Anomaly. They're eternal, older than the stars." Lyra's mind flashed to the visions. The gate, the chanting, the darkness. "The Vreneth thought the same," she said. "They're gone. You don't have to follow them." Kalia's eyes flickered, a crack in her resolve. "You don't understand. The Shaper saved me, gave me purpose. They'll remake the galaxy. Order, not chaos." Ahsoka leaned closer, her presence radiating authority. "And what's the cost?" "You've seen the gate's power. It doesn't serve. It consumes." Kalia's jaw tightened, but Lyra saw the fear in her eyes. Padme's skill at reading people took over. "You're not a fanatic," Lyra said softly. "You're a survivor. You joined the Syndicate to protect something. Your people, maybe. Tell us where the Shaper is. We can protect them." Kellia's defiance wavered, her voice dropping to a whisper. They're on Korriban, the old Sith world. The gate's there, hidden in the Valley of the Dark Lords, but you'll never reach them. They see everything. Lyra's blood ran cold. Korriban, Padme had heard of it in Jedi briefings, a place steeped in the dark side energy, where Sith lords had built their tombs. The Shaper's choice of stronghold was no accident. Thank you, Lyra said, her voice steady. We'll stop them. Kellia's eyes hardened. You'll die trying. The Resistance fought to hold the canyons, but the Syndicate's numbers were overwhelming. Lyra, Ahsoka, and Soren regrouped in the command center, where Vera's holotable showed the battle's grim reality. 2 X-Wing squadrons were down, and the destroyers were closing in. We can't stay here, Lyra said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Korriban's the key. The Shaper's there, with the gate. We need to hit them now, before they open it. Vera's Leku snapped in frustration. And leave Ryloth defenseless? We're barely holding on. Ahsoka's gaze was steely. We split our forces. Vera, you and the Resistance hold Ryloth. Lyra, Soren, and I take a strike team to Korriban. The orb's the key to the gate. We can't let the Shaper get it. Lyra nodded, her heart racing but her mind clear. Padme's strategic brilliance merged with Lyra's determination, forming a plan. We use the Syndicate's own tech against them. Corran's jammer can mask our approach. We slip through their blockade, land on Korriban, and destroy the gate. Soren raised an eyebrow. Bold, suicidal, but bold. Corran, still at his console, grinned. I've got your back, but if we die, I'm haunting you all. The plan was set. Lyra, Ahsoka, Soren, and a small team of Twi'lek fighters boarded Soren's shuttle, the orb secured in its hold. Corran's jammer cloaked their signal as they broke through the Syndicate's blockade, dodging laser fire to jump to hyperspace. The Resistance fought on, buying them time. Korriban was a dead world, its surface a wasteland of red sand and jagged tombs. The Valley of the Dark Lords loomed ahead, its ancient structures radiating a cold but oppressive energy. Lyra felt it in her bones, the dark side pressing against her, but Padme's courage held her steady. The orb's case was silent, but she knew its power was waiting, dormant but deadly. Soren landed the shuttle in a hidden crevice, the team moving quickly through the valley. Syndicate droids patrolled the tombs, their crysium-powered frames gleaming. Ahsoka led the way, her lightsabers unignited but ready, while Lyra scanned the orb's map, its coordinates pointing to a massive tomb at the valley's heart. The gate was there, just as Kalia had said. A towering arch of black stone, its spirals glowing with the same sickly green light Lyra had seen in her visions. Syndicate enforcers guarded it, their leader a towering figure in crysium armor, their face hidden by a visor. Lyra's heart pounded. The gate was active, its energy crackling like a storm. We need to get inside, Lyra whispered, her hand on her blaster. The orb's the key to shutting it down. Ahsoka nodded. Soren, take the team and distract the guards. Lyra and I will handle the gate. Soren grinned, her blaster ready. Time to make some noise. The Twi'lek fighters struck, their blasters and explosives drawing the enforcers' fire. Soren led the charge, her shots precise, while Corran's jammer disrupted the droid's coordination. Lyra and Ahsoka slipped through the chaos, reaching the gate's entrance. Inside, the tomb was a labyrinth of spirals and glyphs, the air thick with dark side energy. Lyra clutched the orb's case, its weight grounding her. Padme's memories of Sith temples surged, warning her of traps, but Lyra's instincts kept her moving. They reached the central chamber where the gate stood fully active, its spirals pulsing with a light that seemed to devour the dark. At its base stood the Shaper, a figure cloaked in black, their face hidden by a hood. Their presence was a void, colder than Palpatine's, older than the Sith. You've come, Anomaly, they said, their voice a rasp that echoed in Lyra's mind. But you're too late. The gate opens and the spiral turns. Lyra's hand tightened on her blaster. Who are you? What do you want? The Shaper laughed, stepping forward. I am the will of the Vreneth, their last servant. The gate leads to the Eternal, a force beyond your force, beyond light or dark. It will remake the galaxy. Order, perfection, eternity. Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, their white blades humming. You're delusional. That gate's a weapon, and we're shutting it down. The Shaper raised a hand, and the gate's energy surged, knocking Ahsoka back. Lyra drew the orb, its crystal glowing in response to the gate. You need this, she said, holding it up. But I'm not giving it to you. The Shaper's hood fell, revealing a face. Human, ancient, their eyes glowing with the same green as the gate. "You think you can stop me, child? You're nothing! A shadow of a dead queen." Lyra's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "I'm more than that. I'm Lyra Varn, and I'm Padmé Amidala. I'm the galaxy's hope." She lunged, connecting the orb to the gate's control panel. Its energy flared, syncing with the spirals, but Lyra's mechanical skill took over. She rerouted the power, overloading the system. Padme's sabotage expertise guided her, while Lyra's resolve fueled her. The gate's hum became a scream, its light flickering. The Shaper roared, a wave of dark energy slamming into Lyra. She staggered, but Ahsoka was there, her lightsabers deflecting the attack. "Keep going!" Ahsoka shouted, engaging the Shaper in a blur of a white light and dark force. Lyra worked frantically, the orb burning in her hands. A vision hit her, the gate opened, the Eternals spilling out a darkness that consumed all. But another image followed. Luke and Leia, their strength, their hope. Lyra's voice, Padmé's voice, whispered, "You are enough." She slammed the final command into the panel. The gate's spirals shattered, the energy imploding in a blinding flash. The Shapers screamed, their form dissolving into the collapsing light, their essence swallowed by the gate's failure. The tomb shook, stones crumbling as Lyra and Ahsoka sprinted for the exit. They reached the surface as the tomb collapsed, the gate's energy fading into silence. Soren and the Twi'leks had driven off the Enforcers, their explosives crippling the droid patrols. The Syndicate's fleet, leaderless without the Shaper, retreated into the sky. Lyra collapsed, the orb inert in her hands. Its crystal cracked. Ahsoka knelt beside her, her face bruised but proud. "You did it, Lyra. The gate's closed." Lyra's breath was ragged, but her heart was steady. The Shaper's gone, but the Syndicate's still out there. And the Eternal... it's still waiting. Soren joined them, her arm bloodied but her grin intact. "One apocalypse at a time, kid. You saved the galaxy today." Corran limped over, his horn chipped. "Yeah, but I'm retiring after this. Too much heroics for me." Lyra smiled, the weight of her dual lives settling into strength. She was Lyra Varn, Padmé Amidala, and something new. A leader, a hope. The galaxy wasn't safe, but it was hers to protect. Back on Ryloth, the Resistance mourned their losses, but celebrated their victory. The Syndicate's remnants scattered, their crysium supplies disrupted, their leadership broken. Vera embraced Lyra, her leku soft with gratitude. "You've given us a chance," she said. "Ryloth stands because of you." Ahsoka stood with Lyra at the canyon's edge, the stars bright above. "You're not just Padmé's echo anymore," she said. "You're Lyra Varn, and the galaxy needs you." Lyra nodded, her hand resting on the cracked orb. "The Eternal's still out there. The Shaper was just its servant. I'll be ready when it comes." Ahsoka's eyes gleamed with pride. "I know you will, and you won't face it alone." As the Resistance rebuilt, Lyra looked to run to the stars, Padmé's love for Anakin, Luke, and Leia, blending with Lyra's hope for her family on Artus IV. She was their legacy, their strength. The spiral was broken, but the galaxy's fight was far from over. She was ready.